The market was alive with noise and shadows, but it was not the kind of place where laughter or joy could be found. Instead, it was filled with cries, the clinking of chains, and the rough voices of traders calling out their prices. Strange creatures moved through the narrow paths, some wearing fine robes, others with weapons hanging by their sides. In the center of this cruel place stood cages, rows upon rows, made of rusted metal and dark wood. Inside them were the weak, the broken, and the hopeless. Most were children, some too thin to stand, others staring blankly at the ground as if their hearts had already given up. The air smelled of dust, sweat, and despair. A human man walked through the market with his hood pulled low. He had no reason to be there, or so he told himself, but something had drawn him to this place. His name was Marcus, a traveler with little money but a strong sense of right and wrong. As he passed the cages, he tried to keep his eyes down, but his heart was heavy with each sound of crying that reached his ears. Then he heard it. A small voice, quiet but clear. "Please, it," said Rel. "Help me." Marcus stopped. His eyes turned toward one of the smaller cages. Inside was a child, not human. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes wide and glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked weak, her thin hands gripping the bars as if holding on to her last bit of hope. Unlike the others, she did not cry loudly or scream. She only whispered, her voice trembling. Something inside Marcus froze. He knew if he answered, if he looked too long, he would not be able to walk away. Yet he could not move on. The girl's eyes held him in place, full of fear and a silent plea for life. A trader noticed Marcus staring. The man grinned, his sharp teeth flashing. "Cheap," the trader said, slapping the cage. "Weak little thing, no one wants her. I'll give her away for almost nothing. Take her, human. Maybe she will last you a week." The crowd laughed. The sound cold and cruel. Marcus felt anger rising inside him. To these people, the child was nothing more than broken property, a thing to mock and sell. But to him, she was alive. She was someone's daughter, someone who deserved better than this. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "How much?" The trader smirked. 3 credits, maybe 2 if you beg nicely." Marcus felt his fists tighten. It wasn't about the price. It was about the shame of the act. Buying a child like she was a loaf of bread. But he also knew if he refused, the girl would remain in chains, waiting for someone far worse than him to take her. Their eyes met again. Marcus and the alien child. Her lips trembled as she whispered once more, "Please." That word broke whatever wall Marcus had tried to keep around his heart. He reached into his pocket, pulling out the last of his money, coins that were meant to buy him food for the week. He placed them in the trader's hand, his voice steady. "I'll take her." The trader laughed again, pushing the cage door open with a squeal of rust. "She's yours, human. Don't bring her back when she dies." Marcus ignored him. His eyes stayed on the girl as she stepped out. Her legs were shaky and she nearly fell. He caught her gently, lifting her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, as if she had been starved for days. The crowd muttered as he walked away. Some laughed, some spat, others whispered that the human was a fool, but Marcus did not care. He held the child close, her small hands clutching at his worn jacket. As they left the market behind, the girl's voice came again, barely more than a breath. "Thank you." Marcus looked down at her, his chest tightening. "You're safe now," he said softly. Though deep inside, he knew safety would not come so easily. Behind them, the market roared on with its endless cruelty, but for one child at least the chains had been broken, and for Marcus nothing would ever be the same again. The narrow streets outside the market were crowded. The smell of smoke and food mixed with the heavy stench of dust. Marcus kept his hood low as he carried the alien child in his arms. Every step felt dangerous. Every shadow seemed to hold eyes that watched him. The girl trembled against his chest. Her breath was shallow. As if she feared even the air could betray her, Marcus whispered, "Stay calm, we'll get out of here." His voice was firm, but inside, he knew the risk was greater than he had planned. Already, voices rose behind him. The trader had shouted, to the guards angry that Marcus had left so quickly. "Stop him," the voice echoed. "The human is stealing more than he paid for." Marcus moved faster, his boots striking the stone path. He turned into a narrow alley, the kind where light barely reached. The girl clung tighter, her glowing eyes wide. "They'll catch us," she whispered. "Not if I can help it," Marcus replied. His voice was steady, but sweat rolled down his neck. He had no weapon, no plan, only the will to run and the hope that his legs would carry them far enough. The sound of boots grew louder. Shouts filled the air. A hunter's whistle cut through. The noise, sharp and piercing, Marcus knew what it meant. More men were coming. He ducked into another alley, weaving between hanging cloth and broken crates. The girl tried to lift her head. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why did you take me?" Marcus hesitated. "Because no one else would," he said at last, "and because no child should live in chains." The alley opened into a broken square. Half-ruined buildings stood like ghosts. Marcus slipped inside one of them. The wooden door hanging loose on its hinges, dust rose as he entered. His lungs burned from running. His heart hammered in his chest. He set the child down gently on a pile of old cloth. Her thin arms shook as she tried. To sit up, Marcus crouched beside her, his eyes scanning the cracks in the walls where thin lines of light slipped through. He could hear voices outside moving closer. The girl looked at him, her lips trembling. "They always find me," she said. Her words were like a confession. Heavy with fear, Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" She touched the side of her neck, pulling aside the torn fabric of her clothes. There, faintly glowing beneath her skin, were strange marks. They pulsed softly like living light, twisting into shapes Marcus had never seen before. For a moment he could not speak. "What is that?" The child lowered her gaze. "My family had these," she whispered. "It's why they took us. It's why they will never stop hunting. They say the marks mean power, but I don't understand them. I only know they make me valuable." Marcus felt a chill. This was more than just rescuing a child. He had stepped into something far greater. If the traders knew what she carried, they would send more than guards. They would send killers. Outside, the sound of boots grew louder. Shadows passed across the cracks in the wall. Marcus pressed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. The girl nodded, clutching the cloth tight. Around her small body, the door creaked. A guard stepped inside, his eyes scanning the dark. Marcus held his breath. His hand tightened around a loose stone he had picked from the floor. The guard's boots scraped closer, every sound sharp against the silence. The girl's glowing eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. Marcus moved before she could cry out. With all his strength, he slammed the stone into the guard's head. The man dropped to the ground without a sound. Marcus pulled the girl up. "We can't stay," he whispered. He pushed through a back opening, leading her into another maze of alleys. The city beyond the market was endless. Streets curved into more streets. Rooftops leaned over them like watching giants. Marcus moved quickly, keeping to the darkest corners. The girl stumbled, her legs weak, but he held her hand firmly. The shouts of hunters echoed again. Whistles cut through the night air. The market had unleashed its wolves. Marcus's lungs ached. His body screamed for rest, but he pushed forward, every thought fixed on the fragile hand clutching his. He had no family of his own, nothing waiting for him in the world, but now, this child, this stranger, felt like something he could not let go. Finally, they reached the edge of the city, where ruined walls crumbled into the wilderness beyond. Marcus crouched low, pulling the girl close. Behind them, torches flickered as hunters searched. The girl leaned against him, whispering again. "Why help me? You could have left." Marcus looked at her glowing eyes, his voice steady but quiet. "Because you asked." The night stretched before them, full of danger and unknown paths. But Marcus knew one thing. He would not let her fall back into chains, not while he still had breath. And in that shadowed wilderness, their journey together had only just begun. The night was cold as Marcus guided the child through the ruins outside the city. The stars above were bright, scattered like silver dust across the sky, but the air was heavy with danger. He knew the hunters would not give up. They would spread, across the roads and forests, searching until they found what they had lost. The girl walked slowly beside him, her small steps weak and unsteady. Marcus had to slow down so she would not fall. She held onto his sleeve, her fingers trembling. Yet her glowing eyes did not leave his face. She seemed to be studying him, testing if he was truly the one she could trust. At last they stopped in a broken barn at the edge of the wild. Its roof had holes, and the smell of old hay filled the air. But it was shelter. Marcus helped the girl sit on a pile of straw. He lit a small flame from a broken lantern. The soft glow lit the space, revealing her pale blue skin and the strange marks faintly glowing on her neck and arms. Marcus crouched in front of her. "You have to tell me," he said softly. "What do those marks mean? Why are they after you?" The girl's lips trembled, her eyes lowered as if she feared speaking the truth. "They call me Relic," she whispered. "They say my family was once powerful, long ago, before their cities fell the marks. They are proof of bloodlines. They say it makes me worth gold." Marcus frowned. "So they want to sell you because of those marks?" She shook her head. "Not just sell. Some want to use me. Some want to break me. Others want to hide me. I don't understand it. I only know everyone I loved is gone. My mother, my father. They tried to protect me, but the hunters came and now I am alone." Her voice broke and she pressed her hands to her face. Her small shoulders shook. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He wanted to give her comfort, but he was only a stranger. Still, he reached out and gently rested his hand on her arm. "You're not alone anymore," he said firmly. "They may chase us, but I won't leave you. Not while I breathe." The girl lowered her hands. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Why? Why do you care?" Marcus did not answer right away. His mind flashed with memories he rarely spoke of. A family he once had, now gone. A war that had taken too much. Perhaps saving her was the only way to silence the ghosts that followed him. "Because you deserve better," he said finally. "Because every child deserves to be free." The barn creaked with the sound of wind. Outside, a faint whistle echoed in the distance. Marcus froze. He knew that sound. It was a signal. The hunters were still searching, closer than before. He lowered the lantern, covering the flame. The barn fell into shadow. "We can't stay here long," he whispered. "Rest a little, then we move again." The girl leaned against the hay. Her breathing uneven, she whispered something so soft he almost did not hear it. "My name is Lyra." Marcus looked at her, surprised. "Lyra," he repeated, letting the name settle in the silence. "It's a strong name." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, the first he had seen on her face. "What is yours?" "Marcus," he answered simply. For a moment they sat in silence, the broken barn around them holding their fragile trust. Lyra closed her eyes, her small body finally giving in to sleep. Marcus stayed awake, his hand gripping a piece of wood, like a weapon. His ears listened for every sound outside. Hours passed slowly when the first light of dawn touched the sky. Marcus shook Lyra awake. "Time to go," he whispered. She blinked, her glowing eyes reflecting the morning light. Her legs shook as she stood, but she took his hand without hesitation. They stepped back into the wilderness, leaving the barn. Behind, birds cried in the distance and the wind carried the smell of the forest. For a moment it almost felt peaceful, but Marcus knew better. As they walked, Lyra whispered, "The marks. They sometimes do things." Marcus glanced at her. "What do you mean?" She looked down at her hands. "When I was afraid back in the city, something happened. The air shook, the guards fell. I don't know how I did it. It scares me." Marcus slowed, the memory of the fight in the alley flashing in his mind. That pulse of energy, it had come from her, not from luck. "You have power," he said quietly. "That's why they'll never stop hunting." Lyra nodded sadly. "Then you should leave me. They'll kill you too if you stay with me." Marcus stopped walking. He crouched so his eyes met hers. "Listen to me. I don't care what they want. I don't care about the danger. You're not just some mark on your skin. You're a child, and you deserve to live free. I'm not leaving you." Her lip quivered. Then she nodded. A small tear rolled down her cheek, but her hand tightened around his, stronger this time. In that moment, Marcus knew the truth. He had not only freed her from a cage, he had taken on a burden far greater than he had expected. Lyra's secret was now his to protect, and the hunters who followed would not stop until either she was captured or he was dead. The forest was wide and silent, yet Marcus felt eyes on him with every step. The trees were tall, their dark branches crossing overhead like claws. Sunlight barely reached the ground, leaving long shadows stretching between the roots. Lyra walked beside him, her hand tight around his sleeve. She tried to stay brave, but her glowing eyes darted at every sound. Marcus kept his grip on the broken piece of wood he carried. It was no sword, but it was something. He knew it would not be enough if the hunters found them. For hours, they walked deeper into the woods. The air was damp, filled with the smell of moss and leaves. Marcus kept his ears sharp, listening for whistles, boots, or the clank of armor. Then it came, faint at first, but enough to freeze his blood. The sound of dogs. Their barks echoed through the trees, sharp and eager. Marcus pulled Lyra close. "Run," he whispered. They broke into a sprint, their feet crunching against fallen branches. Lyra stumbled once, but Marcus lifted her with one arm, pushing forward. With all his strength behind them, the dogs grew louder. Hunters shouted, their voices carrying through the forest. They were close, too close. Marcus's lungs burned, his legs screamed with every step, but he would not stop. The thought of Lyra falling back into chains was worse than death. He forced himself faster. Weaving between trees and rocks, they reached a shallow stream. Marcus waded through the cold water, hoping to break their trail. He held Lyra above the water, her small arms clinging tightly around his neck. The current splashed around his legs, slowing him down, but he pressed forward. On the other side, he pushed through thick bushes, thorns scratching his arms. They fell into a hollow space between two boulders, hidden from view. Marcus pulled Lyra down beside him, both of them breathing hard. "Stay quiet," he whispered. His hand pressed gently over her trembling lips. She nodded, her glowing eyes wide with fear. The sound of barking drew closer. Dogs rushed past the stream, sniffing the ground. The hunters' boots splashed in the water, voices calling out, "They're near! Spread out!" Marcus's heart pounded so loudly he thought they would hear it. Lyra gripped his hand so tight her small fingers dug into his skin. The hunters' shadows stretched across the trees. Torches flickered in the distance. One of the dogs stopped near their hiding place, growling low. Its nose pushed into the bushes. Marcus's breath caught. He held the stone tight in his free hand, ready to strike. But before he could move, something strange happened. Lyra's skin glowed faintly, the marks on her neck pulsing softly. The dog whimpered, stepping back. Its growl turned into a whine, then it turned away, running in another direction. Marcus stared at Lyra, whispering, "You did that?" Her voice was shaky. I don't know, it just happened." The hunters shouted again, moving farther into the forest. The danger was not gone, but for the moment they had a chance. Marcus pulled Lyra to her feet. "We can't stay here, come on." They moved deeper, into the wilderness, climbing over rocks and ducking under branches. Marcus's mind raced. Lyra's strange gift was more powerful than he had guessed. If she could scare animals away, what else could she do? And how long before the hunters realized they were chasing more than a runaway slave? Hours passed before they finally stopped near a small clearing. Marcus let Lyra rest on a fallen log. She was pale, her breaths uneven. He broke off a few branches, trying to make a small fire for warmth. But before he could light it, a sharp crack echoed from the trees. Marcus froze, his head turned slowly. A figure stepped out of the shadows, tall and armored. A hunter. His eyes glowed faintly beneath a steel mask. A blade in his hand, Lyra gasped. Marcus stood in front of her, raising the piece of wood like a shield. The hunter laughed coldly. "You thought you could run, human? She belongs to us. Step aside and I'll let you live." Marcus's jaw tightened, his voice was steady. "She belongs to no one." The hunter moved closer. His armor creaked, his blade gleaming. Marcus's body shook, but he held his ground. Lyra clutched at his sleeve, whispering, "Don't leave me." The hunter lunged. Marcus swung the wood with all his strength. The impact cracked against the blade, sparks flying. Marcus stumbled back, but he didn't fall. He struck again, shouting as he pushed forward. His blows were wild but full of desperation. The hunter snarled, kicking Marcus down. Pain shot through his ribs as he hit the ground. The blade rose above him. But then a sudden light filled the clearing. Lyra stood with her hands raised, her glowing marks shining brighter than ever. A pulse of energy burst from her, shaking the air. The hunter staggered back, his blade falling from his hands. His body slammed into a tree with a heavy crash. Marcus stared, stunned. Lyra's small body trembled, tears in her glowing eyes. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. Marcus climbed to his feet, pulling her into his arms. "You saved us," he said firmly. "Don't ever be ashamed of that." The hunter lay still, but Marcus knew more would come. They were closer than ever, and Lyra's secret was no longer safe. As they disappeared once more into the shadows of the forest, Marcus tightened his grip on her hand. He had promised to protect her, and now he knew the truth. Protecting her meant fighting the whole world. The night grew darker as Marcus and Lyra pressed deeper into the forest. The wind howled through the branches, carrying the faint sound of horns. The hunters were calling for one another, spreading wide. Their prey had escaped too many times, and now they would tighten the circle. Marcus's body ached from the fight. His ribs throbbed where the hunter had struck him, but he kept moving. Lyra walked close by his side, her glowing marks hidden beneath torn cloth. Her eyes were tired, but there was a new spark in them. The memory of what she had done. She had pushed back a hunter with power she did not understand. They found a small ridge that overlooked the valley below. Marcus crouched, pulling Lyra down beside him. Torches moved through the trees like fireflies. Hunters were everywhere. Their dogs barked, their armor clattered. Marcus's jaw tightened. "They won't stop," he whispered. "Not until they have you." Lyra's voice shook. Then maybe you should leave me." Marcus turned to her sharply. "Never." His voice was firm, heavy with meaning. "I told you before. You're not going back in chains. Not while I breathe." The girl's lips quivered. She nodded, holding his sleeve tighter. Suddenly, the sound of branches breaking snapped their focus. From the darkness below, 3 hunters emerged, their blades glowing faintly in the torchlight. Their masks reflected the fire. Their dogs growled, teeth flashing white. Marcus pulled Lyra behind him. His hand tightened around a branch he had sharpened into a crude spear. It was weak against steel, but it was all he had. The hunters spread out slowly, their leader laughing. "There is no escape, human. Hand over the girl, and I'll make your death quick." Marcus's chest burned with anger. "You'll have to kill me first," he spat. The hunters advanced. Their dogs lunged forward, barking. Marcus swung the spear with all his strength, knocking one dog aside, but another leapt at him, teeth snapping. He kicked it back, pain shooting up his leg. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward, striking at the nearest hunter. Steel clashed against wood, sparks flew. Marcus staggered but did not fall. He swung wildly, forcing the hunter back for a moment, but another stepped in, striking his shoulder. He cried out but refused to drop the spear. Behind him, Lyra screamed. Her marks glowed brighter, light spilling across the trees. The hunters froze for a heartbeat. Their eyes widened behind their masks. "The relic," one whispered. "She has awakened." The air shook. A wave of energy burst from Lyra. The dogs yelped and fled. The hunters staggered, their blades trembling in their hands. Marcus felt the ground itself pulse beneath his feet. Seizing the chance, Marcus struck hard. His spear drove into one hunter's chest, knocking him down. He turned, blocking another's blade with his bare arm. Pain ripped through him. But he did not let go. He headbutted the man, sending him crashing back. Lyra raised her hands higher. Her voice trembled as she cried out. The marks along her arms shone like fire. Another wave of force exploded outward, throwing the last hunter against a tree. His mask cracked, his body falling limp. For a moment, silence filled the clearing. Only the sound of Marcus's ragged breathing and Lyra's sobs broke it. Marcus dropped to his knees, blood dripping from his arm. His chest heaved. He looked at Lyra, who stood trembling, her small frame glowing faintly like a living lantern. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I didn't want to hurt them," she whispered. "But they were going to take you. They were going to take me." Marcus reached out with his good arm, pulling her close. "You saved us," he said firmly. "Don't be afraid of what you are. That power is not a curse, it's your right to live, and they fear it." Lyra buried her face against his chest, her tears soaking his torn shirt. Marcus held her tightly, ignoring the pain in his ribs and shoulder. In that moment, she was no longer just a child he had rescued. She was his reason to keep standing, his reason to keep fighting. But danger had not ended. In the distance, more horns sounded. The hunters had heard the fight, and they were closing in fast. Marcus forced himself to his feet, pulling Lyra up with him. "We can't stay," he whispered. "We have to move now." They stumbled deeper into the forest, the stars hidden behind clouds. Lyra's glow dimmed as she struggled to walk. Marcus carried her when she fell, his legs weak but unyielding. Finally, they found a cave hidden behind a wall of vines. Marcus pushed through, guiding Lyra inside. The air was damp and cold, but it was cover. He laid her down gently on the stone floor. Her eyes fluttered, exhaustion pulling her toward sleep. Marcus sat beside her, his body aching, his blood staining the ground. Yet he kept watch, his eyes burning with determination. He whispered to himself, "They'll come, but I'll be ready." Beside him, Lyra stirred, her weak voice rising. "Marcus," she whispered, "I'm scared." He looked at her, his expression softening. "I know," he said quietly. "But you're not alone. Not anymore." Outside, the horns and shouts of hunters echoed through the night. Their fire-lit torches grew closer. The fight was far from over, but for Marcus and Lyra, the bond between them had grown stronger, forged in fire. They were no longer just a runaway and her rescuer. They were a family, and together, they would fight for freedom, no matter the cost. The cave was silent, except for the soft drip of water. From the stone ceiling, Marcus sat against the wall, his back sore, his wounds burning. The faint glow from Lyra's skin lit the space with a pale blue light, gentle and almost calming. Outside, the forest still echoed with the distant sound of hunters, but for now the cave was their fragile shelter. Lyra curled beside him, her small body wrapped in Marcus's old cloak. Her eyes half closed, she whispered, "They won't stop, will they?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "No, not while they think you're theirs." The words made Lyra's lip tremble. "I don't want to be theirs," she whispered. "I just want to belong to something good." Marcus looked at her, his chest tightened. He had seen many things in his life, wars, hunger, betrayal. Yet nothing broke him like the voice of this child asking for something so simple. "You already do," he said quietly. "You belong with me now." Her glowing eyes lifted to his, searching. "With you?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, with me. And I'll fight anyone who tries to take that away." For the first time since he had met her, a true smile touched her lips, small and fragile but real. She closed her eyes, clutching the cloak tighter, and finally allowed herself to sleep. Marcus stayed awake, his mind restless. His body demanded rest, but his thoughts were heavy. He had nothing to offer. No home, no food, no weapons strong enough to face the hunters. Yet he had made a promise, and he would not break it when dawn touched the sky. The cave glowed faintly with light from the entrance. Marcus stirred, his body stiff. He found some wild roots and berries outside, his stomach twisted with hunger, but he gave the food to Lyra first. She hesitated, pushing one piece back to him. "We share," she said firmly. He smiled faintly. "All right, we share." They ate in silence, but it felt different now, like a small family meal instead of two strangers surviving. Over the next 2 days, the cave became their home. Marcus built a small fire at night using stones to hide the smoke. He told stories of Earth, of wide rivers, tall buildings, and skies filled with birds. Lyra listened with wide eyes. Sometimes, she laughed softly, a sound Marcus hadn't thought he would hear from her. In return, Lyra shared pieces of her past. Her parents had taught her old songs of her people, melodies that rose and fell like the wind. She sang them quietly in the cave, her voice trembling but beautiful. Marcus closed his eyes as the sound filled the dark space, bringing peace to his tired soul. One evening, Marcus tried to teach her how to use a stick like a staff. He showed her how to hold it, how to block, how to strike. Lyra laughed when she stumbled, but she tried again and again. Her small hands tightened with determination. "If they come again," she said, panting, "I don't want to just hide." Marcus looked at her with pride and sorrow mixed together. "You're stronger than you know," he said. But Lyra was not only learning how to fight, she was learning how to live again. She picked flowers outside the cave and placed them in a crack of stone. She laughed when a squirrel ran close to their fire. She began to call Marcus not just by his name but by something else. "Papa." The first time she said it, Marcus froze. His throat tightened. He had lost his own child long ago, a wound that never healed. But when Lyra looked at him with those glowing eyes full of trust, he could not correct her. He simply nodded and whispered, "Yes, I'm here." That night, as she slept with her head against his side, Marcus felt something change inside him. He was no longer just her rescuer, he was her family now, and he would die before letting her be taken again. Still, danger pressed closer each day. Marcus knew it. The hunters had not vanished. They were searching wider, growing angrier. More would come, and sooner than he hoped. One afternoon, as Marcus gathered wood near the cave, he spotted smoke rising in the distance, too thick to be natural. His heart sank. The hunters had set fires to drive them out. He returned quickly, his face grim. Lyra saw his expression and asked softly, "It's them, isn't it?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, they're coming. We can't stay much longer." Lyra's small hands shook, but she lifted her chin. "Then we'll face them together." Her words were not spoken with fear, but with quiet strength. Marcus felt pride swell inside him. He crouched and rested his hand on her shoulder. "Together," he agreed. The bond between them had grown stronger than chains, stronger than fear. In the cave that had once been nothing but stone and shadow, they had built something rare: trust, hope, and love. And as the smoke rose higher and the sound of horns echoed once more, Marcus knew the time had come. The final fight was drawing near. The smoke grew thicker in the sky, rising like a warning. Marcus stood at the mouth of the cave, watching the distant glow of torches moving through the forest. The hunters were closing in, their circle tightening. Their horns called out again, and again, each blast echoing like a drum of war. Behind him, Lyra stood with her small hands clenched. Her glowing marks pulsed softly through the fabric of her torn cloak. She looked frightened, but there was no longer only fear in her eyes, there was resolve. Marcus turned, kneeling before her. His voice was steady. "Lyra, this may be the hardest night of our lives. They will come for us, but remember what I told you. You're not a slave, you're not a relic, you're my daughter now, no matter what happens. That truth will never change." Her lips trembled. A tear slipped down her cheek. "Papa," she whispered, "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," Marcus promised, though his heart carried no certainty. Still, he would fight until his last breath to make those words true. The first hunters arrived before the sun had fully set. Their boots cracked against the ground, their torches flickering in the darkness. Dogs barked wildly, straining against their chains. The hunters moved with grim patience, circling the cave like wolves. Marcus tightened his grip on the spear he had carved. His ribs still ached, his arm still bled, but his eyes were sharp. He would not let them through easily. A voice called out from the shadows, cold and confident. "Human, step aside. The child is ours. You cannot protect her. You are only delaying the end." Marcus stepped forward, his voice fierce. "She belongs to no one. If you want her, you'll have to take me first." Lyra stood just behind him, her marks glowing brighter. She placed her small hand on his arm as if to give him strength. The hunters attacked. 3 of them charged at once, blades flashing. Marcus swung the spear hard, blocking the first strike. Sparks flew. He shoved one man back with the shaft, then kicked another into the dirt. The third hunter's blade cut across his side, pain ripping through him. But Marcus did not fall. "Run," one hunter shouted to another. "Take the girl." Lyra gasped as two more hunters tried to circle toward her, but she did not hide. She raised her hands, her marks burning with light. "No," she whispered. Then the ground shook. A wave of energy burst outward, knocking the hunters off their feet. Their torches fell, flames scattering across the dirt. Marcus turned to see her, his heart pounding. She stood tall despite her small frame, glowing like a star in the night. "Lyra!" he shouted. "Stay with me." The hunters screamed in anger, regrouping. More poured from the trees, at least 10. Their blades gleamed. Their masks reflected the fire. Marcus's legs trembled. He knew the odds, but he also knew he would not surrender. He charged, striking. With wild strength, each blow came with the weight of his promise. He was no soldier anymore, just a man. But his heart was enough to make him fight like an army. He struck one down, blocked another, but pain spread through his body as a blade slashed across his shoulder. Lyra cried out. Her marks blazed brighter than ever. A massive surge of light exploded around her. The hunters staggered, some thrown against trees, others dropping their blades. Dogs yelped and ran. The air crackled with raw power. When the light faded, silence followed. Smoke drifted through the clearing. Hunters groaned. On the ground, some unable to rise, Marcus stood gasping, barely able to hold his spear. His body shook with exhaustion. Lyra ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "Papa," she sobbed. "I thought they were going to take you." Marcus dropped the spear and pulled her close, his voice weak but steady. "They'll never take me from you, never." The last hunter who could still stand looked at them, his mask cracked, his eyes wide with fear. He stumbled back into the trees, shouting for retreat. The others followed, dragging their wounded. The forest grew quiet. Again, the horns faded. The hunters were gone, at least for now. Marcus sank to his knees, Lyra still clinging to him. Tears rolled down his face, not from pain, but from the weight of what they had survived. He whispered into her hair, "It's over. You're free." Lyra lifted her glowing eyes to him. "I'm free because of you." "No," Marcus said softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Because of us. We did this together. We're family now, and family means no chains, no cages." She smiled through her tears, pressing her forehead against his chest. In that moment, the fear, the running, the battles, all of it faded. All that remained was the bond between a broken man and a lost child, now whole again. The night passed slowly, but the hunters did not return. When morning came, sunlight touched the forest floor, warm and golden. Marcus stood with Lyra at his side. The world beyond the cave was wide and uncertain, but it was theirs to walk. Hand in hand they stepped into the light, from strangers to family, from chains to freedom. Their journey was only beginning, and though the galaxy was still filled with cruelty and danger, Marcus knew one truth would never change. Together they could face anything,